Hello, I'm Nathan from Pi3G, and today I am going to show you how you can boot up your Raspberry Pi from a USB stick or from an external USB drive. As you might know, one of the most common point of failures on any Raspberry Pi is the SD card or the SD card reader. So if you want to increase the lifespan of your Raspberry Pi, it might be a good choice to boot it up from USB. Another great advantage is that most external USB drives have a lot more storage capacity than any micro SD card has. So with that out of the way, let's have a look at the first step, which is setting up your USB stick or USB drive. Unsurprisingly, this works exactly like it would for an SD card. Plug in the USB stick into a device which runs the Raspberry Pi imager. Then fire up the imager and select the OS image that you want to write to the USB stick. Now make sure to click the SD card button under Storage and select your device from the list of available sources. If you want to configure your OS before the first boot, for example if you want to run the Pi in headless mode, then click on the gear icon in the bottom right corner. This will take you to the advanced options, and we have a video about the Raspberry Pi imager that explains these in detail. The second and final step is to configure the bootloader of your Raspberry Pi to boot from USB. On a Raspberry Pi Model 4, this is really easy, as the bootloader is configured by default to boot from USB. However, if your Raspberry Pi is running an older firmware version, or if you change the configuration of the bootloader, then here are two methods how you can configure your Raspberry Pi to boot from USB. Boot up your Raspberry Pi from an SD card with the Raspberry Pi OS Bullseye installed. Then open up a terminal and enter the configuration by typing sudo raspi-config, and then navigate to point 6 Advanced Options. There you can see the boot order and the bootloader version. Select the latest bootloader version and set the boot order to USB. Reboot your Pi once from the same SD card for the changes to take effect. Then after that is done, you can shut down your Raspberry Pi and remove the SD card. The second method involves the Raspberry Pi imager again. Take an SD card that you don't need for any other project, as the data on the SD card will be erased. Click Choose OS, then scroll down until you see the utility images, select Bootloader and then USB boot. Select the SD card under the devices, and then you can write the image onto the SD card. Once the OS is flashed onto the SD card, insert the card into your Raspberry Pi and boot it up. Just wait for around 10 seconds and then you can shut it down again. And that's it. Remove any SD cards from your Raspberry Pi and plug in the USB drive instead. Your Pi should boot up as usual. Although if you are using USB 2.0, it might be a bit slower. So it's advisable to use USB 3.0 because it's really fast, even faster than the SD cards. If you enjoyed the video, leave a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, as we will post how-to videos on a weekly basis.